Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I am your host, Stacey Andon, and we aren't even having background chatting today. We are jumping right in to talk to one of my favorite co-hosts on this podcast, Kelly Backert. She is the badass entrepreneur of Core Boot Camps, Core Bar and Yoga, opening a new studio soon. So if you are a local peep, check it out in Perry Hall. We are going to talk about our relationship, friendship, and female friendships and relationships in general, because as the world has been so disconnected lately and that desire for intimacy, we're going to jam on a topic that, again, not a lot of people like to talk about. Join us. Welcome. I can't have a season of Everyday Enchantment without bringing you on and letting us just whatever go unscripted into whatever topic you want to talk about.
Well, we were talking a little bit before this started, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you were getting really good. So I was like, oh my gosh, we got to start the podcast.
She's like, stop talking. Let's go. I love it because, well, one of the things I was sharing backstage for a moment was this idea. And I know for me, especially when I was younger, female friendships. First of all, when you're a kid, at least for me, Kelly, you have to tell me, I had some best friends. We played, we were creative together. And then there was something weird that happened in adolescence, or maybe it wasn't exactly that time, where again, I still had some friends and I definitely had, formed some friendships in high school, but there was this weird energy that kind of started to creep through around competition, something over, boys and men in school and grades. And it didn't feel as, I don't know, nurturing as maybe when I was younger. And I know when I went into my early 20s, it was, again, a lot of people want to be connected to other people because they want something, right? I need to be nice to that person because we work together. Mm-hmm. I need to be nice because they're my neighbor, right? Mm-hmm. So we create these relationships out of this kind of belief that I need to appear to be liked, or have people like me so that I can get something from this relationship. And I know for me, I have really shifted out of that mindset, probably lost a lot, I don't know, lost some people in the process, which is okay. And really decided intentionally that the people that I want in my inner circle, my closest friends, I want to have something different that probably wasn't really modeled as well around me for a really long time. I was like, I don't care. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to create. So I'm curious your take on that as well, too.
Yeah, my relationships, when I was younger, it was all based on who should I be friends with because who's cool. You know what I mean? We were in cliques, who was going to get it. Not at all for me personally, was it? I think I tried to sort of create, but it was always like, why are you hanging out with them? And they're not cool. And then I was like, oh, okay. It was very cliquey for me. It was very cliquey. It was about a who's who. It was about are they popular? Oh, they're not popular. And who was it was kind of new kids on the block. It was who was popular this week, right? Yeah. That was ever changing and evolving. So you were supposed to know that and navigate it. High school for me was very cliquey. It was very inauthentic. It was very much about who's it was very kind of, I guess, what you would see in celebrity now.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people recreate
who's out,
create that. Yeah. Still, I see the soccer mom, and I'm not disparaging all soccer moms, but you see these all of a sudden these same kind of, again, dynamics with older groups of women, whatever you want to call it. And it's whoa, how do we not change the script around female friendship. It's funny, I was reading a book last week called How to Be, no, not How to Be Good, On Our Best Behavior, about women being good and kind of trained into being good. And one of the things that the author talks about that I thought was so interesting is women used to have this like powerful network of connection. I mean, this is like this is way before American society. And so what ended up happening is, as a result of the church and power struggles and you name it, all the other things, they wanted to disconnect women from each other because that bond posed a threat to the people in power, right? The church, the leaders, whatever, what have you. And then women then were isolated. And then you had the witch trials, which not just in this country, but all over the place, where women were turning on each other. And so this fear and this competition, like, where do we get that from? It really is rooted, when you go back into a historical view of, again, not our natural natures, all that clique, all that competition. So to me, it's like, okay, so how do we walk away from that kind of stuff? Because again, I've never been good at that either.
Oh, I'm terrible at it. Well, I mean, I don't
Nor do I want to be good at it.
I think you have to learn, if you're asking the question of how do we walk away from it, which you and I have. I don't even know that you ever did it, but I did participate in some of that when I was a teenager. And when I was a teenager, I came out of that pretty early in my 20s, but I think it was because I started a practice of liking myself. So I didn't need to be a part of a group because I was finding things for me. Like, I was filling myself up with being me, being authentic to me, doing the things that I love to do, being around the people I want to be around, and not, I think, not having to grasp outside of myself to fill myself in, because the group, it's like anything when we do that, right? If we don't feel like we're enough, we're grasping for whatever that is. And I think it's grasping for that group, or having to be a part of that group to make myself feel like I'm something, or I feel like I'm enough, or feeling like I belong, or feeling, which we all want to belong. So that's difficult, but I think, yeah, I think that has something to do with it. I think that you and I have grounded ourselves enough and have found ourselves in a certain place in our life where we're like, we don't need to participate in things that don't feel authentic to us, and we don't have to belong to a certain group in order to feel good.
Yeah, no, it's so, so true. And I think you really hit a mark, because I think for so much of our lives, it's like, how does this group then confirm I'm okay, right? If I belong to this group, then I'm okay. I'm accepted, I belong. And that validation, when we put it on people, whoever, whether it's a female circle of friends or any other thing outside of ourselves, like a moving target. And so then you're constantly trying to be whatever you think you need to be, which then takes most of us out of alignment. And it just is exhausting. Who the heck wants to spend any amount of time trying to be something so that you can stay, right? Like, once you get a taste of this confirmation, it's like any other addiction. Oh, I keep needing it. I don't get it once and I'm satisfied. I keep needing it over and over again.
Well, and it keeps changing, and it's very fleeting. So I find it interesting with people in, like you said, like maybe, and we could say maybe like the soccer moms, or even like, just like, I see even in, like, I guess, like, even in gyms, like there's just certain cliques and certain, like, you need to go with these set of people, not these set of people. But that can change. And then you have to, oh, okay, never mind. They're not cool anymore. Now I got to go over here. Oh, that's not the coolest soccer club to belong to. Now I have to navigate over here. Oh, that's not the coolest neighborhood to live in. So now I have to navigate here. Oh, I'm supposed to have my hair blonde, not brown this week. Oh my God. Now I have, oh, she's cool this week. Oh my, okay. So she's on my friends list. I got to text her, because like you do, it's exhausting, and it's constant. I see it. Again, you and I don't participate in this, but we see it because of, well, people that we know, but also clients of ours that are participating in this, and how exhausting it can be and how never ending it can be. And that goes into, like I said, the houses, the cars you drive, because what's cool is constantly shifting and changing. And then, but it's when it comes back to friendships or that sense of belonging, it's so inauthentic. If you just listen to what I just said, that is so inauthentic. That is not, it's not real. It's not real love or friendship or caring. It's fleeting, and it's a moving target, and it's never enough. And it's just, I believe though that most people, I would say most people are navigating from that place.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, it starts in, right? Probably even starts in elementary school these days, right? Younger and younger. It gets kind of like presented as the model of trying again another avenue of this is how you're successful in the world. You connect, you tie yourself, right? Like what's that? Years ago, I don't remember, somebody said it and now it circulates. Like you're the average of your 5 closest
Yeah.
friends or something. And I remember like, thinking like, okay, so who's around me and what intention do I want to be? And again, I also don't want to be the average of it. I want to be myself, and I want the people around me to be able to be whoever they are, whatever that means. But you're right. We get this kind of model kind of given to us as kids, and it just gets confirmed over and over again, and then plays out then when, again, it doesn't have to be soccer, but any kind of place where adults then, right, you see the cliques. I mean, we can see them in town, the different groups of people and how they're moving around socially and that kind of thing. And so how do we, I mean, you and I have created this, so let's talk about it. How do you create something different than that?
Well, I think you and I could also, and I don't want to go into this in detail because then we'll probably shoot down a rabbit hole. But you and I, well, we both experienced loss of friendships and loss of communities when we got divorced.
That's a really good point.
Oh my gosh, I did.
That's a really good point.
But I did. Okay, so I can tell you certain times when I lost. So I lost a great deal of friendships and groups when I stopped drinking in my early 20s. Okay, because that was a big shift for me from going with people who did drugs and alcohol to a different shift. Okay, and then I think another, like I feel you could pinpoint it, would be when I got a divorce. That was a big shift. I saw a lot of people leave, a lot of people come. It was very interesting. And so there's different timelines where I can see, but in those timelines, I had to be brave enough to be alone because I was alone. Like, and I'm being serious, like when I shifted from a time in my life where I was a big partier and I had to let go of all those friends and I stepped into a new beginning for myself, I was alone. Like, I don't remember having, but maybe just like a sparkle of people in my life. And then I had to grow new friendships and grow new beginnings, which were more authentic, which were more suited for me, and which empowered me and made me stronger and made me feel good about myself. But there was a period of time in there that I had to be very brave, and I had to step out of, but I knew that I was ready for that. I didn't want to live at a superficial level anymore. I wanted to live at this higher level with true meaning and true friendships. And I knew that. And so I think, how do you do it? You just do it. But I think you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable living in, you're cutting. And I do think that sometimes you're at least setting up boundaries or even cutting ties with certain people in your life, or stepping away from something that you might have been doing since you were in elementary school. So how difficult is that? Like, you were told, be like Sally and Susie over there. Wear your hair like them. They're wearing their hair in pigtails. Why aren't you? Like, they're sitting over there with those kids eating that kind of sandwich. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, because I don't like that kind of sandwich. It doesn't matter that you don't like that.
Eat it anyway.
Go to this gym, drive that car, be in that neighborhood. I don't like those people in that neighborhood. They frighten me. It doesn't matter. You want to be cool. You want to have your kids be cool. You don't want to be ostracized. You don't want to be like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we're in a constant state, not only when we were younger, but now, even now, like, you're told that. I'm told sometimes, like, well, why don't you do this with your gym? Why don't you do this with a podcast? Why don't you do this why don't you charge this amount? Like, it's constant, right? So I think how you do it is and I don't like this term, and you don't like it either, but I'm going to say it anyway because I don't know what else to say. Is like you continue to work on having a friendship with yourself.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say work on yourself,
Yeah.
but I get this
No,
idea.
but I know what you mean.
Fixed
Yeah.
necessarily, but there's an idea of like how I changed, how I shifted, was really starting to have a really nice relationship with myself.
Yeah. Well, you know what? As soon as I heard you say that, it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes that I love to come back to that Maya Angelou said, and then Brene Brown at some point has quoted in her book. So it's out there. It's, I belong everywhere and I belong nowhere. When you are comfortable enough to belong to yourself, right? Like that was Maya's point, this idea of what do I think about my hair, my whatever, who I'm being on this earth, on this planet, when I know that I give myself the confirmation validation, I don't need it from anybody else. I don't need to go looking for it and then kind of morph around. You do become much more confident, right? Because this is all so much too about feeling secure enough in being able to be like, whatever that is. You and I both in our own family lives have been those roles too. It's like we stand out because we're like, nope, not going along with this. And so this idea of, again, I love what you said about being alone, because there has been so many times I have been you weren't mentioning it, but for me, heartbreakingly like lonely at times, uncomfortable, not thinking I wanted to go out and fix or like, again, figure it, but just being in it and knowing. And I think to your point, we can't like gloss over this enough, or like, I don't want to skip over this part, but like knowing that when you do decide you might want to be doing something different for who you are, your friends, people around you might start to fall away, and you're going to feel all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, now I have no one. I coach clients on this all the time. Well, now I have no one. I might as well have a friend group versus no one. And can we go through that period of transition? Because eventually, like you said, you will create something beautiful through the other side of it if you're willing. And I have never seen anybody, myself included, not have to go through that transitionary period where people do fall away. Hey, and here's what I always love to say too about friendships, anything. It's like people come in and out of our lives in different seasons. A season could be a moment or a day. Like you have a exchange at the coffee shop, and there's your little 5-minute season with somebody. Somebody might have been a season of your childhood or before when you're married or whatever the case may be. We feel like we're supposed to hold on to everything forever, right? We can't let go. And I think that sometimes that really gets people as well too. I've been friends with her. I know I've said this in my own head. I've been friends with this person for 20 years. I don't know about you, but I'm never asking anybody to make some big declaration like, hey, you have to announce we're not friends anymore. You just shift, let things kind of naturally evolve and shift and give it space, and then see what happens. You don't have to keep forcing, but if you're feeling like you're doing it out of obligation, or you're doing because I should keep in touch with this person, or I should be friends, to me, that energy always is wonky, and you're probably not getting a really authentic connection with that person.
No, I
And
mean,
they might be thinking it too.
well, and I think that for me, and I think I learned this a long time ago, is I actually would rather be by myself than be in an inauthentic relationship, because it feels exhausting to me, and it feels unsafe. Quite frankly, it feels unsafe because I know at any given time that's not real. And so that could be fleeting. I'm going to give you a really funny story that happened yesterday. It was just real quick. It's kind of what I'm talking about in this. So yesterday we had a fitness class for Carrie, one of my instructors. And so we were outside, and she held this big class at her house, and it was for her birthday. And, she was dressed like she had this little tank top on, these little cute shorts, and her body's to die for. So you can imagine she's just real cute. And I had on it was raining. So I had on this like hoodie and like these big, like I was trying not to get my hair wet. And and someone goes, look at the difference between what Carrie's wearing and what Kelly's wearing. But you know what was so funny about it is that in that moment, what was so funny about it is that like what I loved about that moment, and I thought about it later on, which is why I was like, yeah, I can be Kelly and
Mhm.
and Carrie can be Carrie, and we can
Yes.
coexist. Not only can we be friends, but we can belong to the same group. And Kelly and I go, well, yeah, Carrie's like nude. And then they were all like, yeah. And like we were laughing, right? So like I'm wearing this hoodie, like I look like I'm in a snowsuit, and she's like, nude. And then we're like, but it's like interesting because like in that moment though, we can all it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it was funny because we can all be friends or together in a sense of belonging, and not everybody has to be the same or look the same or have the same preferences or and we can still feel like we belong. It was a nice feeling. It was very funny,
Yeah.
but like we didn't all have to walk the same, look the same, have the same preferences, same live
Mhm.
the same kind of lifestyle. Like we were all very different, but we could come together in those moments, and that felt really cool to me.
I love that. It's like the difference between fitting in and belonging, right? You don't have to fit in, like wear a
Yeah.
certain thing, but you can belong. And I think to your point, when you're willing to look at life this way, then you can create that for yourself, well, yourself and the people around you. Because I also think like when you're not trying to fix yourself constantly all the time, then you're not looking and like to me, you and we're not into fixing, judging, what have you. Then everybody gets to be who they are in the moment, messy,
Mhm.
whatever it is. I'm not saying you're messy. I'm just saying it can be messy, and nothing has to change or be different about that. And there's a love there, like you said. I don't think, like, again, I got modeled anything close to love in my earlier life, nor do I think you did. And
God,
so, what is love? Like, to me, love is holding space for people to be who they are without anything having to be different or change, right? So, I think you and I, if people looked at us, probably they'd be like, how are those two
oh, I'm
such
sure
good
we have
friends?
a
I'm
couple. I
sure
think we
that's
have
a
a couple
conversation,
well, I think we have a couple mutual acquaintances that probably question that quite often. I
right?
think it's funny.
And I love it because I don't ever again, I am so happy being me and you're so happy being you. We're not trying to superimpose any of whatever we each are to the other. It's like there's this beautiful space, I think, in our relationship that I think again allows there this like again the person to show up. Like I've shown up so many times and I'm like, I'm not okay, and you've said that to me, and it's like instead of again, and I think this is another thing that goes on with again relationships in general, it's like I'm not trying to fix you either. When you come and you say to me, Stace, I'm not okay, it's not like, oh my gosh, let me take it all. It's like, no, let me just hold the space for whatever you're feeling and whatever's true for you in this moment, and let you, right, be, feel it and
You're
be it
not
rather than
you're not trying to take from me though, and I'm not trying to take
mm.
from you. So
Say more
that's
about that. What do you
the
mean?
thing that I think that in relationships do. Like if we're talking about other people, I think
Transactional, you mean?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would say a lot of relationships are, well, what are you it is. What
Yeah.
are you giving me? And then I'll give that to you back. And if you aren't giving that to me right now, then I'm
Mm,
not giving you that back. And
mm,
so it's this, I don't really care if you don't feel well.
yep,
I need you to be this. And if you're not this, then I'm like,
yeah,
it's an interesting, it is, it's very, you see that like in politics and you see that in celebrity places, but,
mhm,
and in a very young childhood, immature relationships, but you see it in normal day to day. It's very, very transactional.
yeah. That's a really good point. And I think again, I think a lot of people try to fix
Mhm.
other people. It's
Yeah.
like and they think they know better, right? I don't think I know better than whatever it is that whatever wisdom you have on whatever you're going to navigate, nor do I try to make you like, I wouldn't be like, oh, Kelly, just be more positive, right? If you're having a bad day, it's like, hey, Kel, let whatever it is that you want to feel,
Yeah.
like, let's just hold this space for it. And I think that takes to your point. If you are not managing your own self, if you are not managing your own emotional, and know that your own emotional well-being, like a lot of people like, oh my God, I have to call so and so, and it's almost codependent, right? We create codependence rather
Mhm.
than actual two people in relationship with each other that are supportive but aren't in this kind of tangled whatever. I don't know, that doesn't feel good to me either.
Well, and I think that people get defensive if another person isn't like them, because then
Mm,
they again, this goes back to this relationship with self. I
mhm,
think, like, for example, how you handle things is usually you'll get, like, sad or cry, and with me, I get super, super angry
mhm,
very fast. And, so so I'll go, instant into anger, and you go instant into, like, so we have different ways of navigating it, but we could see that as wrong. Like, I
yeah,
could say, "You're a wimp. Like,
yeah,
stop being so sad all the time." Or you could be, "God, you're just angry and defiant and awful." Like,
mhm,
but we don't do, but I think a lot of people do. There's a judgment. There's a
yeah,
judgment that's passed, like, "Oh, how she handles it's different than the way I would handle it. Therefore, the way I handle it is better."
yeah,
Or not only, it might not be that I think that the way that I handle it is better, but I might think, "Oh my God, like, I'm not vulnerable enough to be able to allow you to be sad because I don't get sad that often. Or you're not allowed to be vulnerable enough to allow me to be angry because anger really frightens you." Like, you know what I
mhm,
mean? We don't do that, but I think a lot of people do. Like, it's an interesting thing. Like, I think you and I just allow we take care, like, because we have these relationships with ourself, and
mhm,
it's been a process and it continues to be a process. I
mhm.
believe that we can be more open to allowing the other person to just be whoever they are. And then, like,
Absolutely.
so when you come to the table and you bring Stacy, and I don't I can hold space for you. I'm not telling you you're too much, or you're
Mhm,
crying too much, or you're this
mhm.
too much. And you're not saying, "Kelly, you move too fast. You're too angry.
Yeah,
You're holding space for all of the messiness that's Kelly, and I'm holding all the space for all the messiness that's Stacy, and then we get to come together, and that to me is what love is."
I love that. You know, there's another piece of this too that I'm going to put out there just, and I have an example. So, one of the things that I think when you start to get into this, like what I call soul friendships, um, is you can't, or at least for me, this is a hard thing for me because I'm a recovering people pleaser. So, I have to be willing to disappoint, like, and again, not even that I know you're going to be disappointed, but my mind will say, and I have the perfect example because anybody who knows me, and Kelly knows this, I don't drive in the snow. I don't even drive if there's a half a flake out. I mean, we know, everybody knows me. It's my former teacher. They always close the schools around here and I didn't learn how. And now I just don't want to learn how. So there's been times where I'm supposed to be at the studio and I'm freaking out because I'm like, I can't get in a car right now. I don't want to disappoint Kelly because, I get all up in my head about I have to be out of my own alignment, right? My own
Yeah.
integrity is like, I don't want to leave. I want to feel safe in my house. But then this thing that bumps up. And so, first of all, just to be able to be honest, which you and I have this ability to say, hey, this is what I'm got going on in my head right now. And I know, again, I'm all up in my head, but I'm freaking out. And I think when, to your point, this kind of segues from this vulnerability. Are you willing to be vulnerable with the other person? Hey, this is what's going on. I'm so worried that I'm going to disappoint you. But I think we so often, at least for me, I know I did in my relationships, it's like I would sacrifice myself almost all the time
Mhm.
to not be disappointed. Because again, in my head back then, love was like, you don't disappoint people you love. So
Yeah.
there was like this rule that being with you and letting that be challenged and
Well, but
letting
I
it
wanna,
be
but see, it's
okay.
interesting because, like, and we again, you and I did not learn this growing up,
No.
but I I would already have known that. Like, I would,
Mhm.
if it's snowing outside, I would have known, and if you showed up, I would have been able to feel into your uncomfortableness. I would
True.
have known you were uncomfortable. I would have known you were scared, and because I'm your friend, wouldn't want you to feel that way.
Yeah.
Your well-being and your peace of mind and your safety would come before having a class at the studio.
Yeah.
Like,
And
or,
see, that's it though. That's it. When you can put the needs of somebody else, right, in a way that like, I'm sorry, but I don't think a lot of people are having relationships like this.
no, God, no. No.
Because it just, again, that's a love and a consideration that's very, very, it has emotional intelligence around it, right? Because you're aware of what it is for me, and being able to say, hey, I recognize this. And I also think sometimes too, even if it wouldn't be me, because you would drive in a blizzard, I swear. You'd be like, Stacey, I'm not scared, I'm driving, right? Like, it, to your point, even from a few minutes ago, it doesn't matter what you would do. And this is the thing, when you start to really know somebody and somebody shows you who they are, instead of using their, what we would call weaknesses or these tender spots against them, well, just, it's fine out there. Most people, and I've heard this before, because again, the snow thing's the thing. The person I live with that I'm married to is like, just get in the car, you'll be fine. Like, no, my nerve, I should never be on the road. I'm the person that's like, everybody's like, please get off the road because you're scared. So, it really is about being able to, again, put somebody else's like space, but also you're also holding your own. I can't even exactly explain it, but it just feels like everybody's in alignment, even during messier, difficult,
Well,
like,
but I
spots.
think that I think that you and I feel safe enough to have that sort of relationship, because I know you're not. So here's an example.
Yep.
You and I both grew up in families where being our authentic self was not okay.
Nope.
This was not good. We weren't, I mean, no. It was not okay. We were unacceptable, like black sheep of the family, whatever you want to say. So but I think the reason why you and I have such a nice friendship, and people that I do have relationships with, you're either going to allow me to show up that way so that I can allow you to show up that way, or else this isn't going to be an exchange. Because I can't, like, if you weren't like that towards me, then I wouldn't feel safe enough to do that towards you. Does that make sense? Like, if you were like, Kelly, I cannot stand that you, every time something happens, you instantly go into anger. You should not do that. You should be crying. You should be showing your feelings like that. You should not get angry. Then I think I would have a harder time being accepting. Like, because I would feel I think the way it works between you and I is because we both have that.
Yeah.
We both have, it's safe for me to do whatever I want, and it's safe for you to do whatever you want. And we know it's safe. I think if you and I don't feel safe, we instantly are like, wait a minute, this isn't a safe place for me to be. Like, you might find that there's certain people that you wouldn't tell that you're afraid to drive in the snow. Like,
This is probably true.
Yeah. Like participating in some big corporate event, and like, here comes the snowstorm, and you may feel that would be different than calling Kelly. It would be, oh my God, this is a lot of money. This is a lot of time. They paid me a lot to do this. Like, then it feels different. Right. So I think with that, when we're talking about friendships and relationships, I think that's what I think when you can find that, when there's an honest exchange, an authentic relationship, then both people are allowed to come exactly how they are, whatever they are. And the other person is just like, yeah, that's cool, because you're cool with me and I'm cool with you, no matter how I show up. And I know that. And it's, for me, my relationship with you and the relationships that I have right now that are real to me are safe. And I keep going back to that word because
that word.
A lot of my relationships weren't.
Yeah.
I feel safe with you.
Yeah. And I think that it goes back to kind of my point at the beginning, which it's like, we're so disconnected, even though we're connected. But where's the safety? Because I'm sorry, like, just, even my own relationship with social media, I don't necessarily feel that that's where the safety lies. It's like, if we're going to change the planet, right, and we're going to do things differently, it's like love, safety has to be in there. And how do we cultivate that? And it's an intentional practice, just like you and I've talked for on so many different topics about being intentional and being willing to do that. And again, it doesn't mean you go from zero. You don't have to go from 0 to 360
No.
somebody, but that you build that with each other, and you get to a place where, again, and if something, I feel 100,000,000% safe to say, hey, something's not working, or something, bring something up, which to me, there was no safety in that. There was never any bringing things up.
I don't think most people feel safe enough to do that in most of their
No,
relationships.
I
I
would
don't,
agree.
and there's going to be somebody listening to this right now that thinks that this is impossible,
Yeah, that's
because I would have said, but the interesting thing about that is, I actually think that for me, when we were talking about those transition points,
hmm
is I think I was at a point, well, a couple of times in my life where I was like, well, I am now. I either have a relationship like the one that I have with you,
hmm
or not that I don't have any acquaintances or anything like that. So don't get
Sure,
me wrong,
sure, sure. We
but,
do. We
or
do.
like work relationships or
Yep.
whatever. But a friendship, like a true friendship, it's either going to be like it is with you and I, or else I'm okay. I'm cool not having it.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
that for me, that's the difference, because
Yep.
I either want the real deal, or I'm cool just kind of being alone. Like,
Well,
because
and you know what?
I don't know.
I love that. And I think that when you're willing, because then there's not an attachment, right? I'm
Yes.
not attached to this and I need this. Again, it talks about that transactional thing. And you also, here's another piece of the safety thing too. When you are willing to like own your own safety, right? I create that. I am intentional about it. Where do I want to put it? And you listen to yourself rather than, I mean, I put myself in places where my whole intuitive guidance system is like buzzing with an alarm in the background, and I'm doing it anyway. It's like, when you start living like that, you're going to know. And again, it doesn't feel good. It's like,
Well, the
everybody asks,
universe doesn't want you to be alone.
no,
So the
no, no,
universe is
belonging
gonna
is part
take
of
that
this.
the universe is
Yeah.
gonna take that as an opportunity to send all the right people to you. Now, you might be alone for a short period of time,
Yep.
and because you may need to be. However, I
Yes.
don't believe that you will be forever.
Agreed.
I think, especially if you're willing to kind of go out there and maybe try some new things and meet some new people, I think the right people will start to come to you, and you will feel more like, wow, I'm choosing to show up as my authentic self. And then I can see where this is really working, because I'm starting to become aligned with the people that I'm really aligned with, instead of my superficial self showing up, the one that, oh, I have to wear the pigtails. Oh, I have to drive that car. I have to live in that neighborhood. Oh, I have to eat that kind of sandwich. Oh, I have to. No, no, no. What if you just were you? And
Yep.
then all of a sudden the people that came to you were drawn to you because you're just out there being you.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's the ideal vision for
Yeah.
everybody. And
For the
if
friendship with yourself.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Oh, so juicy. All right, so I'm going to ask, if people want to get into Kelly's world closer, if they don't know you already, Kel, where can they find you? How do they
Um,
want? How do you
I
want to
guess,
connect with people?
well, there's a variety of ways,
Yeah.
but,
Well, we'll put
um,
them all in the show notes. But what's the primary?
yeah, so, well, you could just, the main thing that you could do is just like on Facebook or Instagram, you could do core boot camps or core bar yoga, which is with the K.
Yep.
And yeah, that'll be in the show notes. So you
Yep.
can message, or, Facebook Messenger or something like that. And everything, there's corebootcamps.com and corebaryoga.com. So both of those websites have all the other information, like
Okay.
email address and all of that stuff. So there's
Fabulous.
different ways that you can, yeah, get a hold
And
of it.
that is, to just a little nod to our friendship. That is how I found you. And then immediately decided, because I was looking for a personal trainer at the time, and I looked for a year, and I met you in a boot camp you were doing. And I was like, I do not like this boot camp, but I really like you. And that's how it all started. So anybody wants to know, it was me doing boot camp. And again, just like, We were out in this parking lot. The weather wasn't nice. It was all the things that I would have just quit normally. But your energy and your thing, there was something, to your point, that just draws us in. So check out all of Kelly's offerings, the studio, personal training, everything is amazing. And until next time, we will see you later.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get all the delicious details and links we've mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. If you'd like to chat about this episode or learn more about how to work with me, come visit me in my private Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment, or check out my website, staceyandon.com, where you can find out more about my Leap of Faith coaching, my Map Makers group program, and the School of Intuitive Magic. Plus a special shout out for all the production and editing of this show by Richard Wilmore. That's it for now, love. Here's to living a life enchanted. See you soon.